I realize I've never actually talked about this on here. I mean, there was a point, but I was mixing things with history on my old channel years ago. But get held against your will twice. In like the span of a couple of years, like not even, and see how secure you feel going outside. I had a psychiatrist who took advantage of that, who gave it names. I didn't do the research to understand. I mean, the name sounded big and scary to everybody else, though, apparently, like people that I didn't know. But it was understandable more than anything else. And I could go outside with, like, other people, and even just with my kids and the dog, or just, I'd become kind of okay in my own neighborhood because I had, that sort of... I wasn't alone. Thing is, Mika could not be trained for this. She could not be trained as a service animal, so during that time I tried to train Lucky. He was still a kitten and was still in the window where he could be trained. Mika had too many negative behaviors that she had reinforced, and she was scared shitless of people. She had been abused. While she was half-trained as a service animal, she was too scared for this to be anything but cruel. So Mika could barely even go on a walk with me because she would hide behind my legs anytime that there was a person. So if she put herself in front of me, that was big, that was huge. That meant that this person was, like, beyond dangerous, and she expected to be hurt. But, like, they were directing that at, like, us. So she tried to, like, put herself between us whenever... So... there was a bad attitude. Like, anytime I tried to go out, I was trying to condition Lucky for crowds. And to be around people, and for this not to be a big deal, because cats can actually be service animals too. They exist. So he was in training. We were going through the conditioning part. This is actually why my cats are trained to perform tasks. Gorgeous sort of picked it up because she already, like, halfway did some of it on her own without needing direct training. Lucky was being actively trained, and actively trained in obedience and all that. Okay, so he was being actively trained in obedience and how to handle being out and about and all of that, and even just in his carrier, because I wanted to start him off slowly. Especially since he was still, like, pretty young. He was only maybe 2 months old. So we were already starting to get him used to it. Initially, like, he used to go a lot of places with me. He just ran around in my bra. That's what he did as a kid. But we didn't do that, like, going to the store. I started to condition him because I had talked with a veterinarian, and they'd said that they didn't see any reason why he couldn't start that. That the younger animals start, the more they'll sort of... it won't be interesting later down the line, so it'll be harder to distract them. But we got kicked out of, like, 3 stores because I was training him, even though I had him One told me that I had to come back with him in a carrier, so I started taking him around in a carrier, and then they told me that I couldn't have him there at all. And they were kicking out other people who were trying to train service animals too. So there are people out there who think that you're weak if you're like that. No. Actually, you've just seen a side of humanity that makes you trust it less, if at all. If you can still even trust it at all. And I went through this, and then I went through people's reactions to it. I went through the fact that my family literally gave no fucks that this had happened. I mean, both times my grandfather knew this was happening and did absolutely nothing. Like, the only time he intervened the first time was whenever it almost killed me. And, like, the second time I was trying to tell him, and, like, he just sort of thought that this would just be, like, a foregone conclusion. Like, with Neji from Naruto, where he tells everybody that that's their fate. Except, like, he was doing that by just acting like this was an expected outcome, like, and that excused his behavior. Like, even if this was an expected outcome, it wasn't an expected outcome because I was just inviting it. It was an expected outcome because I literally had no support. And so, like, walking straight out of a situation like that, and then this happened. Like, usually whenever people walk out of a situation like that, their family is around them and is like, okay, well, until you, like, recover, you're not out, you're surrounded by family. That's not what happened to me. And I ended up, while I was still even dealing with that, in another situation. Because someone else decided to take advantage of the fact that I was still like that. I was still, kind of skittish and edgy, and, like, it was a big deal just for me to leave my apartment and go on the computers, downstairs. I'd leave my studio apartment, and, so, yeah, after I whenever I was pregnant, I moved, so, wasn't gonna raise any babies in that tiny place. It was basically a closet. I liked it just for me, but you don't raise kids in that, and it was too expensive to get a bigger one. So, and then there were, like, the issues with the apartment, and apparently, like, they themselves didn't want you to have kids there because they knew that there were issues that they didn't deal with. So it was kind of like a thing. Like, yeah. So, yeah, they, this stuff happens to people. And there are people out there who go, oh my god, people are weak for this. Yeah, I already had PTSD before this happened, by the way. So, like, literally, I don't really trust people, and I know soldiers who come back often feel like they're not part of this country anymore. Often, like, feel like they've come back to a place they don't really belong. And this isn't isolated just to the ones who come back with PTSD. Well, I walk out that door with an understanding that everyone is dangerous their own way if they want to be. I walk out that door with an understanding that anyone could actually be dangerous out there. And I have to keep a straight face and know that I could literally be working with a serial rapist or a murderer or someone who is holding someone hostage under their bed or something. That's, there's just I may not need an animal with me anymore to go somewhere, but like, because I could not have one whenever I needed it, I had to have a human with me. So, and even then, it was like something I worked very hard for. And then, even still, I'm never going to feel safe. That's the thing that, like, people are like, oh my god, you have to feel safe. No! You're never going to feel safe walking out that door. That's the thing. Like, there's always that lingering awareness that comes from the experience itself, where you know that the safety is an illusion. And it's not even like I can say, oh, all of my stuff happened to me in another country. No, all my stuff happened to me here. I've never been out of the country. A day in my life. Never been out of the country. I can't say, oh, this stuff doesn't happen in America, because it all happened in America. So, in a way, I wonder if soldiers, I've never asked, like, do you walk around with the awareness that anyone around you could be everything that you faced? Or worse? Because I do. I live in the very country that this stuff happened, knowing that some of the people that did this, that the people who did this to me are still out there. They're not in prison. They're still out there. Yes. Okay. And I have to live anyway. So I can go out by myself, but I couldn't always. And it's because of that awareness. You know, I had a psychiatrist who kept on insisting that it was agoraphobia at one point. It wasn't agoraphobia. It was an understandable reaction to what had happened to me. And, you know, giving it another name just makes it this big scary concept to everybody else. Like, it makes it sound like it's something, like, permanent. And in a way it is, because you're never going to feel safe going out that door. So I get to push through this. And then I see these other people judging because someone who's been in the service doesn't feel safe, and they don't know how to deal with not feeling safe. You know, except as a soldier. Well, you don't want someone as a soldier going out that door not knowing how to feel safe without a gun in their hands. Because even then, you know that you're not safe. Like, soldiers give up a lot. Most of my family's military, and I've seen it. So, I can't stand that shit. I mean, I know someone who has PTSD from being a soldier, who's been wounded, who is physically disabled because of it as well. I mean, and you're going to shit on that? Just because you don't want a service animal in a restaurant? Yeah, there was a restaurant that did that to somebody. And then there was this person in the comments who said that soldiers were weak today because this lady had a service animal.
Yes, people in Vietnam War was weak because they had all issues and stuff.
Yeah. No, people like this are ignorant as fuck. It's like, you don't even know what PTSD is. You don't know what it's like to have it. You are literally reliving the past, the worst parts of it, while you are still having to live in the present. If an animal grounds that person in the present and helps them feel safe, who the fuck are you to judge them? Nobody. You're nobody. And if you're going to ridicule a soldier that comes back with PTSD, you are shit. You are trash. I get enough shit because with all the publicity towards people with PTSD who are soldiers, I've actually had to answer questions specifically that normally you wouldn't have to answer. Like, why do you have this? Like, it's like I have to justify this, even in the system, as to why I have it. And this is ridiculous. Why do you think I have it? Like, do you want to go to therapy? Because I could vividly describe this and put you in therapy, because it's happened before. There's a reason why, like, I won't specifically describe this stuff, like, in detail. Because I've actually put therapists in therapy. Okay? I come by this honestly. I have this for good reason. Like, don't sit there and be like, yeah, describe every detail, like, of these experiences. No, first of all, that's damaging to me. Second of all, you know, I will leave a mess and, you know, just kind of go home and curl up into a ball. And third of all, you'll end up in therapy. Like, I've never had a therapist where I described anything in detail like that and they didn't end up in therapy. Like, I had one who told me, you warned me. And, like, pretty much everyone after has just sort of listened to that. Like, I've had therapists end up in therapy for describing this, so I don't really want to. And then they're like, okay. Because none of them want to be, you know, they don't want to be traumatized. It's called secondary. I think it's called secondary trauma. And secondary is whenever you are privy to trauma someone has been through, and basically it's empathy. It's a product of empathy. So if you are a therapist who has actual empathy, which is kind of required to be an effective therapist, and someone tells you that, you know, don't. Because there's like a level of detail to that will fuck your shit up. Because just knowing that this stuff happened is bad enough and can kind of weigh on you, you know, like, take care of yourself. But, you know, the details, you have to remember that this is bad enough to basically be etched into someone, like, down to their soul. Like, this is bad shit. You don't want to know the details. Like, you don't want the nitty-gritty, like, it's bad enough hearing how this affects them in the first place and knowing that, you know, basically what happened. And don't sit there and ask for every detail of what happened. First of all, this is, like, too much even for the person going through it, and can basically just trigger, like, a massive, like, just domino effect of flashbacks, like the worst ones. And then, you know, like, you want this person functioning whenever they leave your office. I guess I'm at a point where I can sort of function through that, but a lot of people can't, and you don't know. You don't know that. And I will still go home and, like, curl into a ball first chance I get. Like, you still have to deal with that, and it is a massive shitstorm of emotion. And it takes a lot of work to be able to internalize that until you can let it out. But then there's still limits. Like, don't poke the... No. And that's the thing. Like, there are people out there who are like, well, if you need help, you're weak. Well, you're trash. And ignorant. Like, you know that this is the type of person who, if they actually had something happen to them, would be, like, screaming bloody murder, like they were, like, the weakest little crybaby in the world. And these are the type of people who are calling soldiers crybabies. You know what they have to go through? Like, you don't even know. And I'm not going to try to explain it to you. Because I'm actually aware of what they go through. Okay? And I don't just mean the PTSD. I mean, like, they have different triggers. The triggers depend upon your experiences. Ugh. Look, you can't just judge people for stuff that you don't understand. I mean, you can. It just makes you trash. It makes you bigoted trash. And I cannot stand it. So, yeah, I stood up to a bitch on the internet. And I laid it all out. And then I told her that she could only sit there and judge because my grandfather, who had actually served in a war, went out and did stuff. And for her to call people weak for having issues and needing help because they've gone through all of this. What?
I'm just wondering what you're saying.
It's fine. Because all of this stuff, and you can't do. No, she's trash. I mean, anyone like that is just trash. I can't stand people who do that. Because you sit there and, like, these are the people who feed the stigma towards anyone with a diagnosis of anything. And then at the same time, they'll sit there and they'll act all high and mighty, like, I deserve to eat my food. You know, they had a dog in the restaurant or something, and you'll just be like, you know what? You don't deserve shit. Because you can only even do that because our service members have, you know, because there's someone to defend this country. And in some cases, soldiers have to do things that you can't even imagine. And they're told, well, fail. And my grandfather, for instance, was told that if he failed, if he was caught, they would disavow all knowledge of him. And he told me that the difference between the places where they would disavow all knowledge or claim that he was acting alone was which countries would believe which explanation. Like, there were some countries that they'd claimed that too many people were acting on their own, so they'd just have to disavow all knowledge. Like, and he knew that if something happened to him there was no rescue. He would end up there indefinitely. They would disavow that he was ever a citizen, even of the country. He knew that his family would be told that he was MIA. Not if he was dead or alive or anything like that. They would just be told that he was missing in action. And he knew that if he got caught, he was never going home and they were never going to know what happened to him. My grandfather was a Green Beret. If you don't know what that is, he was a special ops sniper for the Air Force. And he was not given a choice. He actually wanted to be a pilot, but he was really good and broke some records with a sniper rifle during training, so they made him be a sniper and they made him take the training to become a special ops sniper. My grandfather, because of the time that he had probably too much spook connections, like too much spook crap. No. And if you don't know military speak, spook crap is like the Shiv dark, sneaky stuff. The intelligence stuff. The stuff that, like, gets some special forces called Black Ops. Means that his fingers were in things that we need to know, and he had been decided at times that he needed to know for things that he had to do. So, I don't know if that always happens, but typically speaking, it's stuff that is generally above your pay grade unless you need to know. And there's stuff like that he still won't say to this day. Like, he will probably just take to his grave. And, like, you can only even sit there and complain about service members with service animals. You know, people are out of the military now who now need help to cope with the fact that the military fucks you up. and war fucks you up. Actually, the military itself doesn't fuck you up. It's war. War fucks everybody up, especially with the way that our country is. And you know, people aren't brought up knowing what this is. They're not brought up with a realistic depiction of war. Video games are not a realistic picture of war. They are very toned down. Realistic war is horrible, and it is beyond horrible. And so whenever you grow up, basically in a bubble of safety, away from war, and then you're thrown out there, you're going to be a little more fucked up than if you knew what it was to begin with. So, they don't know how to deal with this. And oftentimes, neither does society. I mean, I literally have come to the conclusion that civilian doctors don't know how to help me. That, you know, I'm just on my own pretty much. Like, civilian, they don't know how to deal with this shit because I've been through too much crap. But I'm still a civilian, so it's not like I can go to, like, the DMV or something. I mean, not the DMV. It's not like I can go to, like, where soldiers go. And, you know, they're I kind of feel sorry for them to an extent, having to go there anyway, because it's crap. Yeah. But, like, civilian stuff, they don't have the training to deal with the level of crap that I've been through. And I'm not even sure a soldier can handle it. Like, I would have to, like, vet them first, like, find out how much they could handle, even. Like, I don't want to fuck up someone. You know? And I've already put, like, 3 therapists in, like, therapy. So I don't really talk about stuff in that aspect. I'll type it up. I work on it myself. But as far as talking about why I have this and the details, I can't. Because that just, it fucks people up. Just hearing about it. So, you know, anyone who ridicules our armed forces, knowing that they've probably been through worse than even I've been through. And you think that them needing an animal to walk out that door and feel safe is weakness. Well, I guarantee you, it's not. That animal is an anchor. Something different than the flashback, something that anchors them there and helps them feel safe. That animal knows if someone around them is dangerous. So they don't have to wonder as hard. And that animal is basically trained to help them through it. And that animal will tell them whether they're trained or not if a person makes them uneasy or is unsafe. And they will know, you know, who's safe, who's not. And that's why. It's also why, if you ridicule someone for this, you're trash. Absolute trash. You don't understand what this is like. You have no right to judge them. You are trash. I cannot say this enough. If you ridicule our service members who need animals to feel like they can even live, like, and function, you are trash. You have no idea what they've been through, and you are trash. You're just trash. And if there's a service animal in that restaurant, I hope you get up and leave. I do. Because none of us want to sit there and listen to your trash. Just leave. Because the person with the service animal should be staying. Now, if it's a fake service animal and they're jumping all over the place, begging for food, they're not a service animal if they're doing that. Service animals are generally trained not to do that. They're not like supposed to be jumping around, misbehaving. A service animal is trained to behave a certain way in public, and even to an extent in private. This kind of carries over a little bit. That doesn't mean that at home they might not kind of learn that there's a different standard in behavior. Like, they can still look at you at the table and be like, I really want this. But, like, they're not going to be, like, hopping around begging for food either, because they've been trained not to do that. Like, if an animal is not behaving well, they are not a service animal. Like, I cannot stress this enough. You cannot judge a real service animal by a fake service animal. And it's actually not that hard to tell. You look at the behavior of the animal. Are they well behaved? Are they looking everywhere? You know, if it's a puppy getting trained as a service animal, and they seem like they're trying very hard to behave, but they're looking around, wagging their tail, and then kind of like controlling themselves, that's behavior that you see in a service animal in training. Because they're being trained that they need to control themselves, but they're also a puppy or a kitten. And, you know, they're kind of like, I want to look around, but I must focus. You know, like a little kid who has been told you need to do that math problem. But it's so interesting! You know, and you can see that they want to misbehave away from what is a service animal behavior, but they're still staying within a certain parameter. A animal that is not a service animal will do things like shit on the floor, piss on the floor. Yeah, I've actually seen this happen. Will growl at other dogs. Will bark, hop around, boingy. Basically, they will be a dog or a cat, just as they would be like walking around. If you see an animal pulling their person, and there isn't a legit reason for this, like usually blind people have like a harness specifically so that the animal can direct them. But if you see someone with a service animal and that animal is on a leash and they're pulling them, you know, like, ask them, what tasks is this animal trained to perform? You can't ask them why. Is this animal a service animal? What tasks are they trained to perform? A service animal has to be trained to perform 2 to 3 tasks. Mine fall under ESA. Emotional support animals. ESA are not, because you know I didn't get to complete that training for the service animals, so I never got them certified. So they are ESA and they fall under that, and I've actually had to get doctor's notes to prove that for landlords. So that's a different thing. Like, you don't take ESAs out and into the store and stuff because they're not trained to handle that. If this is an ESA and not a service animal, you can tell them to leave. But if they can give you like 2 to 3 things that animal is trained to do, or actually, you know what, in cases like detect seizures and stuff, you know, that's, I don't think you want to mess with that. But usually there's still a couple tasks that they're trained to do. Like, what do they do whenever what do they do whenever they detect a seizure? That sort of thing. But usually you can tell by the behavior of an animal, whether they are a legitimate service animal, or an ESA, or just a dog, or a cat that somebody just wanted to take into the store. But if you see someone with an animal that is not behaving, or even is, just be like, what tasks is this animal trained to do? Because, if this animal is trained to do something like detect a seizure, you want to know if this animal is detecting a seizure, right? I mean, unless, like, you know, because this would, like, increase your response time, right? But, like, if they don't want to tell you that, I don't know. Some people might not want to tell you because it reveals the thing that you're not allowed to ask. What is your disability? That's not something that you can ask people. That's actually a violation. But you can ask them what tasks their service animals are trained to perform. Often they'll be trained to perform additional tasks that don't fall under their disability, like retrieve shoes, and stuff like that. But generally, what sets a service animal and an ESA apart, or even just from a regular pet, is their behavior. If an animal is misbehaving, but also, you don't know if that animal is trained to bark as a warning. Most aren't. It's usually a quiet, sort of non-disruptive thing. But just ask. What task is this animal trained to perform? If that animal is not trained to perform specific tasks, they're not a service animal. It's pretty much all you can do. But also, people who just rib on people for needing service animals for things like PTSD are trash. Because they have no idea what they're even talking about, and they're judging people who are going through something I guarantee you they would be whining about if they had. They would be like the first people in line for this. And I find that very ironic, considering how trash they are when they don't have it.